Let me introduce the moderator. Today's moderator is Mr. Sanjay Kumar Das, Joint Secretary, DoIT&E, and State Information and Security Officer, Government of West Bengal. He is a West Bengal Civil Service batch of 96, did his Masters in Physics from Calcutta University, qualified in his Masters in Business Administration from ICFAI, and LLM from Kakatiya University. Also holds a PG diploma in cyber law and intellectual property rights from the Indian Law Institute. Is also a postgraduate diploma in rural development and educational technology. Served the Intelligence Bureau for 4 years. He is also diploma in training and development from the Indian Society for Training and Development, which makes him a trainer of trainers, can speak 5 other languages apart from his mother tongue, and is currently serving as the Joint Secretary, Department of IT and Electronics and State Information and Security Officer, Government of West Bengal. Now, let me introduce Mr. Tathagata, Additional Director, EZ, NCIIPC, Government of India, one of our panelists. Mr. Datta is having 21 years of industry experience in the domain of information security. His scope encompasses information security audit, cyber risk assessment, forensics analysis, and strategic planning. He has conducted cybersecurity audits of critical infrastructures of POE, BFSI, and other strategic sectors, not only in India but also beyond boundaries in Europe, Southeast Asia, and UAE. Mr. Datta has been instrumental in establishing India's first commercial cyber range at Gurgaon, which is being used by national agencies to enhance their cybersecurity competency. As a cyber risk analyst, he has assisted different national critical infrastructures and government entities to identify their cyber threats and mitigate the risks of state-sponsored attacks. Welcome, sir. Now I welcome our second panelist, Mr. Supratim Chakraborty, partner Khaitan and Co. Mr. Supratim is a partner in the corporate and data privacy practice of Khaitan and Co. He specializes in corporate and commercial transactions such as mergers, acquisitions, joint ventures, and general corporate law advisory. Mr. Supratim has advised eminent clients in relation to information technology laws in India, including data privacy and cybersecurity related issues. He has been recognized as a leading individual in the Legal 500 edition for data protection in India in 2020. He has been recognized also as a notable practitioner in the IFLR 1000 2020 rankings and has been categorized as recommended lawyer in the RSG India Report 2019. He holds a GDPR FA certification and DPO certification. He is a member of ASSOCHAM's National Council for FinTech, Digital Assets and Blockchain Technology. Welcome, sir. Our next panelist, Mr. Bilas Sengupta, Manager IT and Regional CISO, POSOCO, ERLDC. Mr. Sengupta is an electrical engineer having experience in power system operation and IT for 23 years. Certified India Power System Operator and specialized in regulatory affairs. He is a certified lead auditor for ISO 27001 standard, involved in design, engineering, and implementation of IT and OT security. Author of various publications on IT and OT security in forums like CIGRE, CBIP, etc. Working as regional CISO in leading PSU in Indian power sector. Last but not the least, our next panelist, Mr. Arnab Neogy, Head IT, Tata Medical Center. Mr. Neogy is a MCA, ITIL, MCSE, RHCE, OCP, DBA. Total 21 years of experience. Experience in 24/7 operational support on enterprise IT infrastructure and ITES, process management and ERP system admin. NABH internal auditor. Working in hospital industry for last 13 years. I welcome all the panelists. I request now moderator to please start the panel discussion. Welcome everyone, the stage is yours.
Thank you so much. Thank you everybody. I hope I'm audible. I could not taste my mic.
Yes, sir. You're audible.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you so much. First of all, this is really a trying time, and rather these are trying times. But the good thing is we are doing something. A lot of things are happening at the same time. When chips are down, we always come back with renewed vigor and we push back really hard. And this pandemic has made it possible because we were confined to homes. We understood that we would not be meeting very soon. And we had to delve into a digital world where the platform is more important. And when the connectivity is the key for any communication or any activity, then the next thing that comes, that connectivity and the platform and the channel of communication must be kept secure, because if there is no security, there cannot be any data privacy. And as our principal secretary has just told, that we are actually going into a phase where very soon we will be seeing the real happening of this data privacy bill for the country, as well as we will be seeing the amendment of IT Act. But another thing will also happen, that anytime soon the national the cyber security strategy will also be published, which was talked about by our Prime Minister from the ramparts of Red Fort on 15th of August. And the National Cyber Security Coordinator of India, Dr. General Major General Pant, had been instrumental in receiving inputs from across the country, and a draft had already been placed with the authorities, and I hope the strategy will see the light of the day very soon. As soon as that strategy comes out, a lot of other changes would be required subsequently as far as policy is concerned, because that strategy will be our cornerstone, and all other guidelines and policy will have to comply that strategy. In the meantime, we witnessed, post-Dokalam, huge intrusive activities into the critical information infrastructure of the country. And we resolutely stood against that. We firmly actually supported the initiatives of the government, and we could thwart that challenge, definitely in a concerted manner. At the same time, we have been receiving news that our power sector is actually being attacked night and day, and people who are responsible for managing the critical infrastructure as well as the power sector, they are working hand in gloves in order to maintain and bring a semblance of security in that sector too. So this panel is especially, this is a diverse panel which will speak about all these things I have just enumerated. I would like to start with Mr. Chakraborty, Supratim Chakraborty, who is a practicing advocate of repute. Mr. Chakraborty, with your vast experience, I would like to put forward you with, you can say, a diatribe or a challenge per se. You can say, we often say that this is a challenge or problem statement for a hackathon. So, like a problem statement, if I put before you that compliance, which is going to come post this strategy, post this, data privacy bill, compliance, will it be a ban or boon for the industry 4.0, wherein our country is leading towards? After the passage of this data privacy bill, how the industry is going to cope up with this, factor called compliance? Mr. Chakraborty.
Yeah, thank you, Sanjay. I think, and thank you to all of you for your collective time today. Very happy to be a part of this gathering. My quick take on this is it will perhaps be looked at as a bane in the shorter term, but definitely a boon in the longer term. The objective is very clear and noble, that we would like to give a lot of rights to the data subjects, okay? And that is what we are trying to achieve. The GDPR experience has also shown that life will not be easy as soon as this law comes into effect. There'll be teething problems. Two sets of things that we have to be mindful of here. One is general compliances, okay, which are provided under the Personal Data Protection Bill. And the other is certain rights that are to be given to the data subjects or data principals, as Justice Sri Krishna famously called them. He said that after the Britishers have gone, I would not like to call any of my fellow Indians as subjects. So therefore, the data controller is known as data fiduciary, and the data subject is known as data principal. It's a relationship of trust that is being tried to be built through this mechanism. So, sticking to the first one, which is general compliances, there are things like privacy by design. As we were listening to Principal Secretary Sir, I would also echo the same thoughts. We need to educate more and more people who are there in our life, in our ecosystem, and explain things to them with easy examples. For example, when you go to a restaurant, you've had your food and you are about to pay your bill, they will get a point of sale machine. At times you will see some come with a cover, some come without a cover. So the product that comes with that cover kept privacy in the center of things. And that's the simplest example that I can give of privacy by design. So whatever you are doing in your life, whether you're designing a product, a service, etc., if you keep privacy in the center of things, a large part of the issue is resolved. There are a number of other compliances like transparency requirements, security safeguards, breach notification requirements. You have to have a grievance redressal mechanism. There are certain categories of fiduciaries, data fiduciaries or data controllers who have a higher threshold of activity as far as sensitive personal data is concerned. They also have a similar, a larger quantum of requirement like impact assessment, record keeping, data audit. You have data protection officer, which has to be appointed, so on and so forth. But I don't think that this should be a problem because as we go ahead, technology itself is coming in handy. Okay. And let's take an example of, say, the data subject rights that are there. Okay. Like, say, right to confirmation and access, right to be forgotten, data portability, correction and erasure and all of that. What is happening is that organizations are quickly moving on to automated modes to address these requirements of data subjects. So they can directly say, get onto a dashboard, plug in the details and get the information that an organization has about an individual, rectify everything online, and we are good to go. Okay. Of course, we have to be, careful also, because the GDPR experience has shown that some miscreants got onto these portals and, siphoned off information about people, and they were not really the real owners of such data. So I think it's a good thing that some of these jurisdictions are ahead of us. We can learn a lot. And to answer your question in brief, finally, it might be looked at as a bane in short term, but definitely a boon in the longer term. Thank you, and back to you, Sanjay.
Thank you, Mr. Chakraborty. Actually, on a lighter note, I would say that the recently, published, rolled out information technology guidelines for intermediaries and digital media ethics code, the IT rules 2021, has given us a precursor or the trailer, or as our children say, teaser, as to what we would expect. So the compliance with regards to what is coming our way, it is really, really a troublesome issue. But from the point where you have left, Mr. Chakraborty, I would like to, put a good, opportunity for the entire industry, where you put that the most of the organizations, those who are, early to go up and, accept the change, embrace the change, they are going into automated mode. That means the compliance is becoming a part of their daily routine or the schedule. So that automate brings up to a fore that there would be a great opportunity of software design and hardware requirement and huge ITS activities in the coming days. So, once again, the bubble which was about to burst very soon might require a little bit time. So this type of policy and the compliance would in turn support and augment the IT industry on a different plane altogether. Coming to Mr. Neogy, Mr. Arnab Neogy is in healthcare, and I would request Mr. Neogy to delve into a certain very important aspect, that is, data, the generation of data. Healthcare industry, it generates petabytes of data on the fly. The moment I go into any private clinic, I have to fill up a long list of information on a piece of paper. I am not last time I went to one of the very renowned these clinics, I asked them why I should fill it up. That lady just told me that you can just go away, it is mandatory. So, my rights are not right now, protected, but I will definitely come to Mr. Chakraborty and find out how I could next time I visit that clinic. But, this data, healthcare industry generates petabytes of data on the fly. And actually, where do they go? Are they being sold on the black market? Or are they being leveraged in a manner that we don't know? Are we not authorized to know where our data is going and how they can be leveraged in the right way to actually generate employment and the fuel the industry? Mr. Neogy.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. I'm directly coming to the point. Actually, yes, what sir you have told that exactly is true that healthcare industry by large is collecting a lot of data, including your personal information as well as your health information. So you can say that a person who is a lot of, I mean, he is exposing the way in a bank is more exposing himself or herself to the hospital. Because in a bank, what information you are giving is just your financial information. And in a hospital, actually, you are giving your healthcare information also. Now, the point is how this data is getting stored and how it is getting utilized. Yes, the thing is that as far as my knowledge is concerned, and from my last 13 years of experience in big healthcare companies, one is definitely Tata Medical Center for last 11 years, and initial 2 years in Columbia Asia Hospital. I am fortunate that both of these hospitals are totally IT oriented, starting from an entry of the patient to an exit, I mean to the exit of the patient by discharge or by normal OPD procedures. Huge amount of personal healthcare related data a hospital can store. Now what is happening? If the hospital is using it properly, then it can generate ample of opportunity for further treatment plan, and it can generate a good dimension which gives government also to set up different policies regarding the healthcare. I am just citing one example. I think Mr. Sanjay Kumar Das is aware of the National Cancer Grid. Sir is aware of, I think, definitely. National Cancer Grid is actually have, I think, 4 or 5 main hospitals across India. One is definitely Delhi AIMS. The other is TMH Mumbai. The third one is CMC Vellore. In the eastern region, Tata Medical Center. And maybe in center of the country, I think one AIMS branch is there. I am not very sure. These are the hub of the National Cancer Grid, and there are a lot of spokes in eastern, western, and other part of the India. The huge amount of data which the National Cancer Grid is collecting, I know that whenever a patient comes to our hospital for a cancer treatment, he needs to enter or register himself for the National Cancer Grid data project, and we have a dedicated counter in the billing center, near the billing center, for this data which to be transmitted to National Cancer Grid. So government is definitely getting and utilizing those data for the cancer care of the country. The second option which I can say is nowadays, because of the presence of COVID, I mean the starting and the presence of COVID, all of us are aware of one particular organization or institution that is known as ICMR. Now almost many of the literated people, they know about ICMR. ICMR is doing a huge amount of research based on the data the hospitals they are generating. They have dedicated projects, and they are collecting the data and doing the research for the benefit of the country. Then there is IRB, the research division under whom any hospital, if wants to go for a research, has to be registered and should be gone through IRB. There is a panel where the internal doctors and external panelists need to be there for the board, and all the research work should be submitted through the process of IRB. So I can say that if a hospital who is generating the data, if it can retrieve the data, not only generating, it need to store and retrieve in proper manner, so that actually when the time comes, they can retrieve, the data can be retrieved and used for research, and those research actually gives the patient a lot of benefit for further treatment. Maybe the generations, next generations, or maybe even the current generation will be benefited because of different type of researches which are going on across the country by different hospitals, be it government hospitals like AIIMS, be it private hospitals like Tata Medical Center and others. The last thing is how the, yes, I have already answered that how the people, or what is the, I mean, the advantage or leveraging the data for the benefit of the society. Yes, it is giving a lot of advantage. Like I am saying, many of the hospitals 10 years ago didn't have an idea of what is PACS. Now, many of the private hospitals are using PACS, that is Picture Archival and Communication System, for the radiology department. It is not only giving radiology department a quick chance to go through the patient's condition, but also gives them a scope to research on the data. At present, our hospital, in our hospital, the radiology department alone runs plus 50, means 50 plus research on the radiology data, and that is all connected through IRB to Government of India. So this is a good number for a particular hospital, which says that how the petabytes of data, yes, petabytes of data can be helpful, and if stored and retrieved in a proper manner, it can give you a 360-degree of approach for treating the patient. Thank you, sir.
Wonderful, Mr. Neogy, wonderful, really wonderful. But I would just like to, add from this place that the place where you work or we go, they are data fiduciary, because we are giving them the data, and it is not possible for the data fiduciary to work alone. So the data fiduciary actually employs data processor. Then data processor, when it becomes big, it actually employs data sub-processor. So for each of these employment, that means from fiduciary to the data processor, between them, between the data processor and sub-processor, there has to be a specific agreement. But these agreements are not properly reviewed by any third party. Like often Mr. Shushobhan or Mr. Tathagata, they actually VASA and ISA, that means infrastructure security assessment they do, and they do web application security assessment. But for these type of compliance, there is no VASA or ISA. So whether the sub-processor or whether the processor processes and actually keeps the data in a manner that is required of them, then what would have happened if that is true? Then we would not have received any call. Then most of us would not have received any call that, see, the medicine that you are using, there is a replacement to that. Because that does not remain confined to a certain proportion. Yes, the big corporate houses, the big players, they really are very, they really are very conscious about. That's why the price is little high. But the French players who are trying very hard to remain afloat, they actually utilize this data to leverage some amount of money, and that's why huge amount of data is coming up. So government has to come up with a policy or a framework so that organization who requires data for data driven decision making, they are given that. And that's why Government of West Bengal has come up with a guideline that is called public transactional data sharing guideline. So a platform is being created where public authorities can upload the public transactional data, provided that those data are PII free. That means this personally identifiable information is cut off from the
Mask.
data. Yes, not mass. It is completely cut off. That is not masked. That is not redacted. It is cut off. The anonymization. So they are anonymized so that no one can be profiled. So when that data actually is given and uploaded on that platform, the industries, the MSMEs, the startups, they can easily draw those data and utilize them for their research and development and data-driven decision making. So big data analytics will come in a huge manner, and industries will be benefited out of this, and nobody would be required to go for the data from the black market. So I hope this is a positive aspect which the government has done, and I hope I would request everybody to actually express this, extend this information amongst your peers, colleagues, and friends, so that maximum people can take benefit of this. This was done in the last month of 2020, December 2020. So coming to the next panelist, Mr. Bilas Sengupta, who is a prolific writer in his own rights and has been working specifically in power sector, which has recently been dragged into a lot of controversy. We know about 13th of October, Mumbai power shortage and all these things. So Mr. Sengupta, I'm sorry, I am privileged to put before you this problem statement per se, that power sector is more or less the honeypot for foreign state actors, because disrupting the power sector actually disrupts and cripples a nation. So how awareness and upskilling, awareness of people at large and upskilling of the stakeholders could put a better firewall of knowledge, other than the firewall of tools, technology and others, or firewall of knowledge against such intrusions. Mr. Sengupta, please.
Thank you, Mr. Das, and thank all the people who have joined here for this beautiful session, and which is very informative. The question is, it's a very interesting question. It's a very well articulated question, because this every time is coming now. Actually, as you have already stated, post-Dokulan, there are plenty of activities going on and plenty of threats has been reported. Now people are very much, eager to know what power system actually is suffering from. And the other aspect of the question is very true, that basically the most lacking thing in data security or cyber security perspective of power system is not technology but awareness. Not only awareness for the people who are working in that field, but awareness of common man, actually awareness of every Indian, so far as the orientation of power sector is concerned. And that's why I think the apprehensions are more, as well as obviously the risks are also more. But so I would take this opportunity to share some of the key aspect of Indian power sector at large, because as you may be aware that India operates the second largest grid in the world. We have more than 370 gigawatt of generation. It's a huge synchronous grid, and and totally we are different from many other advanced countries so far as the administrative control of the entire power sector is concerned. At time, I personally believe that is to some extent a bliss for Indian power sector, because in power in India being a very concurrent subject, it is being dealt by the states as well as the center in their own manner, and at times from the power system engineering perspective, we feel the pain of having a sort of a asynchronous, administrative control, where implementing various technological advancement as well as implementing various regulations are very different from state to state, and it's very difficult to have a synergy as well as a uniform approach. Because the regulatory affairs at state has different sort of perspective altogether, and we have a very skewed generation, very skewed load. So nothing is very much uniform across India so far as power system is concerned. But at times, that is a blessing to us, because this diverged architecture of Indian power sector somehow has made the power system very robust from the various filtration perspective, various attack perspective, and has made by design the Indian power sector a bit more secure. Recently, maybe there are a lot of talks happening so far as the Mumbai grid, minor grid failure concerned. So far in recent, this Radico alerts, etc. concerned. But so far as my knowledge goes, as well as my perception goes, and the data which we have analyzed from Western Regional Load Dispatch Center, from Southern Regional Load Dispatch Center, and various other ERLDCs, and the architecture basically we follow, we really still doubt that there are huge intrusions already have taken place. And rather, I should state in this manner that even if there are intrusions, that has made much impact so far as the stability of the grid is concerned. Why I am saying so? By design, Indian power system SCADA as such is not typically wired up to the end equipment. Indian power system SCADA is more a data acquisition tool than a supervisory control tool, and the SCADA actually is not typically wired for up to the trip circuit of the breakers. So at present, by design, having an intrusion in some of the regional load dispatch center SCADA, or maybe the state load dispatch center SCADA, really do not allow you to make any difference so far as the stability of the grid is concerned, or so far as the connectivity is concerned. You don't have that control, like many other countries have the control of directly tripping a line, or doing certain difference in the elementary level of the grid. We are not typically wired like that. But with the gradual development of various regulatory frameworks, acts, implementation of various sort of self-healing mechanism, as well as economic dispatch mechanisms, we are slowly moving towards a regime that there would be some controls which will be operated from the control centers. We recently have implemented FGMO, that is the free governor mode of operation, where the generator governors are being wired, and then the data of the governor control is wired through a feedback loop with the control center, so that at the requirement of time, the governor can be controlled remotely, and the generation can be altered, so these type of activity, like the implementation of REMC, the implementation of tools like a CED, that is, this typically requires integration of data across various platforms, and which in turn is making slightly our system vulnerable. And I obviously accept that creating a path in the power sector is comparatively easier than any other sector, because from cybersecurity perspective, power sector SCADA is not enough matured till date. I am not talking about only India, but I have been opportune to interact with many global leaders like China or Japan, or maybe most of the European countries. There also we have seen typically, the SCADA are mostly off-the-shelf tools which are being developed in developed countries. The most available SCADA tools in India are either from ABB or from Siemens or maybe from GE or OSI. So, and these tools are typically used across the globe. And most of these SCADA system by design is not very much secured from various cybersecurity or various cyber attacks. The architecture is not that much of a robust architecture, but mostly there is a perception that OT systems are comparatively islanded, comparatively more secure, though it's not very true today. Because in many a place we have seen that the IT and OT has been mixed in many SLDCs, even in RLDC, because ultimately the point someone has already mentioned that we need to use data. We need to analyze the information being received from the remote stations through SCADA. Ultimately, one of the main objective of implementation of SCADA or maybe the PMUs, etc., are to collect as many as information or as much as information possible to protect our grid. So there is always a compromise between these two, whether to use all the information for protection of the grid or whether to basically restrict the information up to a level and avoid analysis of those information for cybersecurity perspective. But obviously it is true, and we have already taken a lot of initiative towards that we need to strengthen our SCADA also and our OT integrations also from the cybersecurity perspective. Various applications which we are using, like recently Government of India has launched that NOAR project. There we are taking care of the cybersecurity perspective, and I believe that Indian private sector is becoming smarter and going very fast to acknowledge that the cybersecurity is a very, important aspect of grid operation also, and jeopardizing our security may lead to a major catastrophe so far as Indian grid is concerned, and we are ready to accept that challenge, sir.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Sengupta. Actually, it is really exhilarating. I would just like to add on to what you have just said. We know that Mexico has the largest solar power unit, followed by India, its Kurnool unit, then China and others. So they say that very soon either India might be the largest, single largest solar generator. It might happen very soon. So another thing is happening very fast, that people are putting on solar panels on the rooftop and generating power, collecting power, and collating it and putting it into the grid. And those grids, they are being measured through IOTs, and those remote grids and smart grids, they are called. So I would once again think that this is high time we started thinking about the IOTs that are being installed at each of our households, so that we pull back and push back the additional or solar power that we do not use into the grid, so that our power bill comes down and green energy is created. So green energy, as it is being created, it is also creating a new security threat that is being generated out of piggybacking. Recently, in 2019 October, Utah in USA, they witnessed the first cyber attack of their solar power unit. That has been the first of its kind. So there should be something first, and it will witness the first, and it will not be the last, of course. So power was already a CII. It was already a critical information infrastructure, and generation of solar power, putting additionally generated solar power, back into the grid through measured through IOTs. It is becoming another issue, another great challenge for the CII monitors. And we have the Eastern Regional Additional Director, Mr. Tathagata, with us from NCIIPC, the National Center for information infrastructure, critical information infrastructure. So I would request Mr. Doctor, a very good friend of mine, to just tell us that between 2000 and 2000 and 2015, the nation had this IT Act, but hardly have any executable policy or guidelines to speak of. But between 2015 and 2021, the country has been witnessing huge plethora of policies and frameworks. So how you are planning, the government of India is planning very hard, and with help from state governments by setting up state level CERTs, as the state government of West Bengal has recently created one, the state level CERT, helping them, upgrading their skills. How are you planning to actually cover the last person standing in the inter and food chain, so that the data privacy and their right to the data is really protected? Mr. Datta.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for asking such a important question, which can actually be taken in the understanding of the larger audience through such a platform, which I'm again thankful to Shushabon and Infosec Foundation, where we all are a party to. Yes, it's very important that policy and the implementation, if they are poles apart, then people will start asking the relevance of having a policy in place. But if we consider the vastness of our country and the kind of diversity that we are having, it is very difficult to give a timeline or expect something that some area will be eliminated by just pushing a switch. So it's a journey, and you have correctly pointed out that it maybe from 2000 IT Act 2000 to 2015 there has been some provision in pen and paper. However, from the implementation part of it, it started a bit later. So if we generally analyze any situation, that when someone actually take action, when they feel a need, when there are some impact which they have had in person. If you can recall, very recently, all of us, you are the moderator there, in one of the West Bengal government's webinar, we are participating, we are interacting with people. And my co-panelists asked, there has been a data breach reported, which happened to Google and other service providers. And we have asked that how many of you have changed your password? And there are only 2, or I think 3 people raised their hand that post the event, they have changed their password. So why they have not felt that they should also change? Because until unless they feel that, yes, I am compromised, they will not act upon. This is a culture that we are having. And when we consider that the last person who is a consumer should get protected, the responsibility does not lie on the government only. The central government, the state government, the beneficiary, the consumer, everybody need to come up and contribute. Because when we talk about security, my friend Supratim talked about security by design. All learned friends and panelists talked about different aspects of security, but we also know security is basically an orchestration. Each and every component of the orchestra should sound in the same rhythm. Otherwise, there will be some disconnect, some noise in the whole ecosystem. Now, if you look at the journey from 2015 onwards, we all know that we have an umbrella of law takes care of all adversary that exists in the society. However, to take this to the granular level, the regulators have been empowered with lot of power and to execute certain things, to bring things or to bring law and order or the governance in the place. Like RBI has released mandates, the first major mandate which covers the in cybersecurity requirement to 2016 as a framework, which first time gives a direction to the bank, because earlier everyone was working in silos, they were having their own perception, they are considering their own context. But if you look at the nation as a whole, other businesses, other critical sectors have dependencies and co-working requirement to exist and to cater to the life of the human being. So the need would feel that there should be some framework which will ensure consistent delivery, if not as a whole, maybe sector wise. And then sectoral regulators got empowered and they have started releasing mandates on, maybe IRD has released a mandate in 2017 on the insurance do's and don'ts and how security, cyber security specifically posture needs to be adopted. Similarly, we have mandates from DoT. RBI has extended their coverage to NBFCs, and going forward, post we have started getting more and more ATM compromisation. There have been 3 mandates which force the whole ecosystem to upgrade their POS and adopt necessary controls. So, in a nutshell, we can say this is a journey. It is good that somewhere we have started. But again, everybody needs to contribute. We need to feel the need of the security, as you have said. Mr. Sengupta was saying that awareness is more critical. People should be aware of, because if I just think that I will keep my doors open, I will not do anything, and if something happens and someone come and steal my valuable, then it is responsibility of the law and enforcement agency to protect us. That seems very funny. So in that respect, I think it is good that the journey has started. And from the policy perspective, yes, policy is always top down. However, while framing a policy, there should be a bottom-up approach as well. As I and Supratim work very closely, we take inputs from the industry, the processes, the newer cases when we face, then we discuss how to take this to the higher level, so that while framing a policy, those incidents can be considered or factored as a use case or the variance of occurrence that may exist in the society. And the other aspect that, sir, you have correctly said that power sector is a honeypot or the most low-hanging fruits to the nation-state attack. Not only power sector, no doubt power sector is most critical. However, there are 7 other sectors identified by the country as a whole, that banking and finance, healthcare obviously, and transport, specialized or private and enterprises like petrochemicals, ports, they all fall under national critical. Telecommunication obviously. So if you look at, all are correlated. A bank cannot work without a support of communication system, without a power system. A power system cannot work without a telecommunication, or vice versa. So we from NCIIPC, we are mandated to take care of all national critical infrastructure. The fundamental of the whole game is, if any adverse impact happen on any of our national critical infrastructure, there are 4 major pillars of national interest. One is national safety, national security, national economy, and public health. If any impact on any one of them can cause any adverse impact on all these 4, then we as a country, with all stakeholders, should equally take the ownership respective to their prerogatives, to contribute and make the country a cyber resilient one. Arnab was saying that yes, they are dealing with petabyte of data for the betterment and research and all. Today, I'll not take the name, any patient get admitted in any hospital, all his data is available in 30 paisa next day. And those data, we are talking about big data analysis and all. So if you consider the nation state attack, if any country where we are not in a such friendly relationship get the access of the data of an entire region of a country, and they can quickly analyze it by using some basic tool and get to know that this part of country is, the citizens are susceptible to that kind of attack. So the chemical attacks can be planned. It is that serious. So we just go to a hospital, get our test done, and come with a happy face that I need not to go there again. They will send the report through an SMS or WhatsApp or mail. But what they will do with the data which are there with them? yes, one part that they will be, utilizing this for the better research to come up with some good product and services. However, the most discussed term today is supply chain contamination. Sir, you are rightly pointing out that the product, the technology, all these aspects are being covered. There are rules, standards. But when someone is outsourcing something to some third party, and the third party is with good faith, further outsourcing it to fourth party, fifth party, and I don't know how many nth parties, is the primary data owner. You are referring about the data processor, there are data controller, the terminologies we are dealing with. But yes, the new bill that are coming up, we all are mentioning, Principal Secretary sir was saying, Supratim saying that there are certain controls that, purpose restriction. You may be collecting my data when you are pushing some vaccine to me, but collecting data would be restricted for further use for this particular purpose. So those things are coming up, and I think more regulations, more mandates will come in days to come, because threats are changing very rapidly into this. So that's all from my
Thank
side.
you so much.
Yep.
Thank you, Tathagato. It is really a pleasure, to share dais with a person like Mr. Pavan Duggal. I have been hearing him for such a long time, and this is the first time we actually have some moments, and he is waiting to speak to us, and he must be listening to us, and he will be delving upon these points which we have raised. To end it all, before thanking and handing it over to Mr. Duggal through Shukanna, this webinar is on data protection and policy framework. I hope that the data is the DNA. The data is not the blood; it is the DNA, because it is unique and it changes with people. Like blockchain, the blocks. So I cannot say that the data that I am spilling out or I am allowing it to spill over has the same value when it changes hands. So as DNA is unique, data is unique, and we need to protect it like our own self. With these words, and thanking you, Shushobon and Shukonna and everybody of InfoSec Foundation, besides thanking profusely to each one of my co-panelists, I'm so happy and honored to be a part of this journey, as well as being the moderator. Handing it over to Ms. Shukanna so that we will all hear eagerly as we are waiting for Dr. Duggal. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, all the panelists. Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much. It was an excellent session. Now I take the privilege to
Thank you.
introduce